Well, there's never really been a clear aid policy for Africa. There have been all sorts of separate initiatives and ideas and projects that have been approved and new programs and so on, but we don't have an overall vision of Canadian aid to Africa. So there's been no actual aid policy per se. But what we've seen is over the decades there have been many trends, so that in the 1970s Canada was very interested in Africa and aid to Africa grew tremendously, multiplied by many times. After 1993, it shrank, and in fact, aid to Africa, Canadian aid to Africa, was cut in two. It was halved. And in the final years of Prime Minister Jean Chrétien's term in office, he sort of reinvented himself and became the friend of Africa and put Africa on the G8 summit when Canada hosted it in Kananaskis and set aside extra funds. And when Paul Martin became Prime Minister, he continued that as well and stated that Canada would double aid to Africa. When Stephen Harper became Prime Minister, the government maintained those commitments and in fact did double aid to Africa. But it was really in 2007 that we started to see a shift, at least rhetorically, away from Africa, saying that the Americas would be more important. But if you look at Canadian aid figures, they continued to go up. And so Africa still is very much part of the Canadian aid landscape. But its form is morphing a bit. And part of what we're seeing is more money for maternal and child health. Now what it looks like, and we haven't seen it played out yet, is the role of the private sector and partnerships with mining companies. And this has, I think, dangerous implications around aid effectiveness, and I think it will be less effective in contributing to poverty reduction. So I'm hoping that my chapter will bring these issues back to the fore and to get it out there to discuss what are our objectives in Africa. The current Minister for International Cooperation, Julian Fantino, has emphasized self-interest and that Canadians should get benefits from foreign aid. But my perspective on that is very different. And I think that, but also by law, Canadian foreign aid is about poverty reduction, and it's not about benefiting Canadians. And there are many ways that we can benefit Canadian or assist Canadian corporations with foreign affairs and international trade, the Export Development Corporation. So CEDA, to me, is an institution, and my understanding of the Canadian law is that it has to be about poverty reduction. And supporting mining companies, for instance, is not a very effective way to reduce poverty in Africa.